Well, we can't call them government motors anymore, can we? So, Jim, they're buying back a lot of stock from the Treasury. The Treasury also said whatever they got left that GM isn't buying, they're putting out on the market. They're getting out of the auto stock business. But it's at a big loss to the taxpayer and not such a bad price for General Motors.
Well, look, Tim Massett, who's in charge of the TARP disposal program, has done a remarkable job. A friend of mine from law school. He is trying to get the best prices. He did get GM to pay up. He had hoped to never break the price of the IPO, but there was the time is to wrap up TARP. They're wrapping up all the banks that are lost that they still have. And I think the way Tim looks at it, and interviewed him this morning for Squawk on the Street, is basically, look, you got to take a look at the mosaic. We got a lot back. AIG did well. This one had to go to 70 to really break even. GM was the worst of these, and I think a lot of people feel like, well, they still didn't even clean up the labor situation. The GM, the bondholders did horrendously, and that's unfair. I always felt that was unfair. My colleague Matt Horween, who writes for The Street, has pointed out endlessly to me that GM was one where labor did well and capital did badly, and the government did badly. But in the context of where the stock was, low, high teens, the government did well. It played the market and it did better. And then the last price was good. And remember, they're going to dribble it out. And I think to get that big chunk gone, the stock could go up, a la what happened with Citigroup when they were dribbling it. So GM seems to me, I was asked by Melissa Lee, do I like it? Yes. It is behind in terms of its restructuring in Europe, Ford. A lot of people want to own Toyota here. The auto stocks are very strong. I was talking with Stephanie about the parts makers. Maybe they could be right. Johnson Controls pre-announced a good number. So, I mean, it's kind of a feel-good story. Yes, I wish the government had been able to offer more at the IPO price, be able to get out, but still, the fact is GM paid up, and that's a win for everybody.
Right, and as you mentioned, if you look at the overall TARP picture, they will come out ahead when you put the banks in there, put AIG in there. So while they did lose money on this one, in the overall scheme of things, they did okay, and they did a lot of good.
Right, and the Fannie Freddie losses were, remember, there's these big losses that the government took, but TARP, of which is still controversial, was a home run, okay, because it was meant to save the banking system. It did save the banking system.
And the autos.
Yeah, and the autos, and GM stayed open. There was a sense that the government would lose a couple $100 billion with TARP, and that certainly didn't come true. It did save the system. Europe had like kind of a quasi-TARP going on with its banks, but there were ways, in other words, to save the banks, but the crisis in Europe wasn't as instantaneous. People saw that one coming. Some people did.
Do you own any GM cars?
Do I have a GM car? No.
Have you ever owned a GM car?
No, I've owned Ford. I've owned BMW. I've owned Toyota. Those, I guess, are the ones that I owned a Volvo for a while. Saab. We have a lot of different cars, but
and as you mentioned, Saab's not even going to be around anymore, and GM is. So there you have it, right?
Yeah, but I guess that's GM. Yeah, GM. But I'll point out that this big catch-up move by all these stocks, people really like it. So don't sell any of these.
Okay.